My Queer Across America journey has brought me to Colorado for Pride Month this year. I've decided to visit as many Prides and Pride events as I can. I'm happy to learn that there's no shortage of LGBTQ+ celebration in Colorado, but I did notice just how different each event was. First, I visited Boulder Pride in the city of Boulder. It was pretty busy and there were some really important booths that I came across that I hadn't seen before, like one organization dedicated to providing care for queer elders. Some positives about the Pride was that there was different age groups attending, groups of young trans kids and older queer folks. However, compared to a lot of other Prides, there was a noticeable lack of diversity. Boulder's a bit of a pretentious area. Even before visiting, I'd always heard that the city was diverse, but looking at the Pride and the surrounding areas proved that to be disappointingly untrue. There was a certain air in the city, like people were eager to show that they were allies. Maybe a little over-eager, and that kind of made it feel very fake. This was also kind of reflected in the presence of big companies. A lot of the booths were companies giving away free things to market themselves, rather than queer people selling their art, services, or whatever else. It was like platforms were given to those trying to show that they support the queer community, rather than giving platforms to the actual queer community. The food was also kind of a joke. If you look closely at my $18 sandwich, you can see 2 little pieces of chicken. Thankfully, I had my soda that said share a Coke with a partner, just vague enough to make it seem like they support. My next event was Fort Collins Pride, a city that's a bit over an hour drive above Denver. It's a much smaller city, but the Pride celebration was much more powerful. This one was very family-oriented and felt more like a fun day at the park than companies trying to push their marketing on me. The diversity here was surprisingly much more present. Boulder felt more for gay cis men, while Fort Collins felt more for queer folks. There was even plenty of disabled representation, probably since this event was much more spread out and accessible. The vendors were also much different. You can see how most of the tents don't have logos because they were mostly queer artists selling art that they made themselves. That's what Pride should be about, not Coors Light or Patagonia telling us they support the community. If these companies want to donate money, then absolutely do it, but don't take up a spot that a queer artist could have used. Better yet, why not pay the vending fees for the queer artists? That would really show some genuine support. I'm curious how Prides are celebrated outside of the US. I was surprised to see that at both Prides, alcohol wasn't the focal point. In cities like Los Angeles and Phoenix, there's usually a massive line to get a $20 beer. Here, the alcohol area was on a different spot, in this weird farm cabin area. I wonder if this family that once owned the land would be happy that queer dancing, hot lesbians, and trans twerking was taking place on it. There's a big area for performances all day. With the unholy heat, it was a good time to sit and hang out for a bit. I can't believe these are the performers that conservatives think are so terrifying. This little kid kept running up to the artist, then got shy. It was really adorable. The next event was a non-corporate Pride market, where there was no corporate sponsorships or vending fees. Queer creators were welcome to set up shop, and the turnout was incredible. I was there to promote Outfront magazine and their publishing branch, Q Publishing. Outfront is the oldest continuously running queer magazine in Colorado that started in 1976. And I couldn't be more proud to be one of their current writers. I was also there to promote my own book, The Downtown Underground, which is available on the Barnes & Noble website and Amazon. One of my articles was in the June issue of Outfront magazine when I realized that it was my first time in a print publication because my past jobs have all been digital. How appropriate that my first issue was the Pride issue. I found some time to get away from manning our booth and was excited to see all the other vendors and what they were offering. I fell in love with this artwork and couldn't help buying a patch. My final event of the week was Underground Pride. Much like the market, it was a big you to the bigger Pride events by not having any corporate sponsorship and was a much more DIY environment, especially since it was at a punk venue, Seventh Circle Music Collective. It was a 3-day event of music, vendors, food, and good vibes. Pride hit a lot different this year, especially with all the political nonsense that's been happening. But I also noticed the evolution of Pride. When I was 17, I went to my first Pride and could barely afford the $20 to get in. Now, I can't even imagine how kids are paying over $100 just for entry. I'm really proud that I went to the Underground Pride and the non-corporate market. Pride has changed a lot for me over the years. I'm over the exploitation of the community. Pride should be by queer people for queer people. If corporations want to donate, then donate, but don't take up our space. As we've seen with companies like Target, they don't actually support us. They're a business and they're just trying to make money while making it seem like that they're inclusive. I love seeing Pride going back to its DIY roots and throwing up a big you to the mainstream that abandons us as soon as things get challenging. If you're enjoying my travels, queer content, and want to support an independent queer project, give me a like and subscribe and join my Patreon, where I have exclusive videos, my book The Downtown Underground, and access to the Queer Across America Discord community.